Welcome in to A Glitch in the Matrix. I'm your host, Jessica Jones. I'm the Cryptid Huntress. And man, I am so excited. I have two powerhouses in the studio today. Not only do I have Dr. Dennis Carroll here, I have Barry Littleton here too, to come and talk about the pale crawlers with us today. My gosh, we're going to have such an interesting conversation. I hope you guys are ready. Okay, because for the first time ever, I have Dr. Dennis Carroll and Barry together on one screen, and myself too. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Gosh, y'all, we hit a huge milestone yesterday. We officially have 8,000 subscribers here at the Cryptid Hunters channel. So I want to give a huge thank you to all of my subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Because my numbers, they just keep inching up a little bit, and it's just the more the merrier. The more we have the message getting out and connecting with our tribe. Okay, it's connected with our soul tribe. So I am so excited about this, and so I couldn't do it without you guys, of course. So thank y'all so much for all your support. Okay, this is amazing. Okay, so we have a great show today, and if you guys would like to follow along with all of my stuff, whatever I got going on, all my shows, I have a website. That's thecryptidhuntress.com. You can find all of my shows there and all the events where I'm going to be speaking publicly and just hanging out publicly. Okay, so I just added a new one to the list. I will be at the Appalachian Starseed reunion. That's in August, and our friend Barry Littleton will also be there. And a few other people, okay, a bunch of other people. We'll be announcing all that later on. But I just wanted to let you guys know I will be there. That's in North Carolina. I think it's August the 1st through the 4th. Okay, so you guys come see us there. Also, I'll be at the Full Disclosure Now conference down in St. Pete, Florida. That is in July. We got the Spaced Out Radio fan party in Reno, Nevada next weekend. Not this weekend, but the next weekend. So I hope to see you guys there as well. And I got a Squatch Out coming up too in September. So just all of it there on my website. Okay, if you guys would like to support my work and things that I'm doing, you can go to my Patreon and become a member. Shout out to all my members. I appreciate y'all. And free merch with purchase, okay, on my shop, War Woman Goods. So you guys, please, if you'd like to support me, go buy some jewelry. It really does help. It helps the cause. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. Okay, let's get the show on the road today. So for people who are not familiar with pale crawlers, they are so creepy. And they're all over the internet right now, all sorts of videos of them. Pale crawlers are being reported and seen quite frequently across the United States and throughout the world. Videos and home security footage of pale crawlers in the Appalachian Mountains have recently been posted on social media sites, and Long Island Bigfoot Mike, who's in the chat, recently came on my show at Spaced Out Radio this past Sunday and told about his terrifying account when he was in the woods up in New York, I believe. Pale crawlers are quadrupedal, human-like creatures that are often described as resembling adult humans who walk on all fours. Although there are reports of them walking on two legs, they have thin, gangly frames and are always naked. They're never seen wearing clothes, not yet. And they have translucent skin with no hair. They're fairly large in stature. I mean, they're anywhere from like 6 to 8 feet tall. And they are described as having sunken-in eyes and a wet sheen covering their bodies. And of course, Long Island Bigfoot Mike said that he could see the blue veins poking out of his skin. Okay, so super scary, something you don't want to encounter in the woods at night if you don't have to. So what exactly are these things? Where are they coming from? Is our government aware of them? Ooh, we're going to get a little conspiratorial today, because we've heard that cryptids have been and are potentially used as assets in agencies and potentially governments. So we are going to be doing a deep dive on this today. We're going to be talking, like, we're not claiming to be experts on this, okay? But I have Dr. Dennis Carroll here today, and I also have Barry Littleton here. So I'm going to bring both of them up. Please help me welcome to the show, Dr. Dennis Carroll and Barry Littleton. Hey, guys.
Good afternoon.
Greetings. How you doing, Dennis? Nice to meet you, finally.
All right, sir.
Hey, Jessica. Thanks for having me on.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is going to be a great conversation today, because I've been seeing all these videos of pale crawlers, and the first thing I think of, I generally think of both of you guys whenever I see something that's really creepy, and I'm always wondering what y'all's opinions are on these things. And so it's such a treat to have y'all both here today. And I've got Long Island Bigfoot in the chat. He actually had his own encounter with a pale crawler a while back, and he was protected from that thing by a Bigfoot. And so we'll get into that conversation here in just a little bit as well. But have both of you guys heard of the pale crawlers? I'm sure you have. Okay. But what are your opinions on this? Either one of you.
Well, to me,
Dennis, yeah.
They are very freaky. Okay, let's put it that way. They are very freaky things. And here's three things we got to think of. We've got to consider when we think about pale crawlers. One, they're worldwide. Two, why do they crawl? And three, the pale bioluminescent type ability that they have means that they actually, to me, either are never see sunlight that much, or are from underground, or whatever that situation is. That's the three things we got to really look at when you think about pale crawlers. It's really freaky. But here's and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show when we were talking, Jessica. Are these things connected to the goblins of old folklore? Or is this a government thing? And it's worldwide. What do you think, Barry? It's worldwide. That's an interesting thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. The way they're explained to me, and what I've seen too, is that they're pretty much rakes or ghouls are pretty much the same thing. Only difference I've seen is sometimes these pale crawlers are described as having mouths, where sometimes rakes say they don't have mouths and noses, but these pale crawlers. But there's still this ghoul thing, and there you go. To make it the way it was described to me, and what I've heard is a correlation between not just these and ghouls and these others, but that they're actually what are humans that have been exposed to a type of a fungus that is quite similar to, I can't say the exact name for disease, but it's actually called the zombie virus, or the zombie fungus. And it actually is a fungus that affected ants, specifically in the rainforest. And they're saying it's not communicable to humans. But I've heard that there may have been probably one of these labs or somewhere, some adjustments to where it can be communicable to humans. And that's what these are suffering from. And, it was compared to me to the movie Chud, that early 80s movie Chud, which stood for, it's a cheesy movie, but it stood for a cannibalistic human underground dwellers. And then also what is supposed to be that these homeless got into this nuclear waste that they were storing underneath the subways. And so it also stood for chemical underground dump as well. And just, food for thought again. I don't know a whole lot about this one, but that virus would be, as my understanding, similar to what is also called Wedico and that type of virus. And we've got this virus type, this fungus deal that comes from other civilizations or whatever it might be that can actually go through space, immune to cosmic rays. It's very interesting when you start getting into that, and that takes us into movies like The Body Snatchers. You remember that was a fungus. It's just a food.
Well, the traditional ghoul was an underground dweller. You know, they dig underground supposedly, and if you look at the depictions of this, the so-called photographs that they've gotten, and the descriptions, this sounds definitely like some kind of underground dwelling type thing. And you would definitely think about this. If you live underground in caves, you don't ever stand upright that much. You'd be more on all fours going through there. You know, that's what struck me as strange about it. Definitely.
Yeah,
that is
I
true,
think
isn't it?
there's definitely a cave connection with these things, and it makes me kind of question some of the investigations that I've been on, as far as the field research goes, and investigating people's property that had cryptid activity on it. You know, in the cave up in Tennessee that I talk about a lot, once I got into the cave where the couple thought that their chickens were being taken into this cave, they did find a human footprint beside the chicken coop. But and there was a trail of feathers going up to this cave. But once we got to the opening of that cave, there were no footprints. So you only could assume that whatever took it climbed up the wall of that cave, because there were no prints at all. Either they went into a portal or they climbed on the wall to get through there. And so something like a pell crawler could have been the culprit potentially. But I mean, they don't look like they eat chickens. They look kind of hungry. You know what I mean?
I have a question. In both of your opinions, what is? I should have seen that. Chud the Bud. That was a terrible. The second one was the worst of the first movie. Sorry, that totally threw me off. In both of your, sorry, in both of your opinions, what do you think is causing the bioluminescent factor in these creatures?
I think it would have to be that underground factor. I think it would definitely be that, without a
You
doubt.
think
And
it's
here's
maybe
another
chemical
interesting thing, another interesting facet of that. You get a lot of reports of these in caves and stuff like that are very close to a lot of these so-called underground military bases. You've got a connection there, you know?
Yeah. So you think it could possibly be chemical or radioactive as well, or factor there?
Yeah.
Wow.
And like I say, if they were experimenting with these things, like with the super soldier thing or whatever it is that they were doing, you would want that to be one of your factors. Maybe that's some kind of a way to trace them. Maybe that's some kind of radiation they've been exposed to. That might be part of the equation with as well, you know.
You know, even looking at some of the other, I always tend to use entertainment to see what they reveal. And another one is Living in the Night of Living Dead. That was some type of either a virus or a fungus that was let loose. And there's the new show, The Walking Dead. I believe that's not a fungus. It's a virus, though. I believe that one. But still, how this keeps coming up, this zombie factor and things, and how much that seems to relate to not just dark, but the satanic, and it's all connected. You know, it's pretty much sucks in my opinion. But
and you know, they're being so pale and white like that, they may look a lot more bioluminescent than they really are. In that respect, when you see something that pale, that white, it kind of has a shine of its own. You know what I'm saying? It kind of it shows that way. So that might be part of it too. Definitely to consider. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned in the beginning that they've been spotted all over the world, and that's very true. There's actually a map that I found online that was called Pell Crawler Sightings, crawlersightings.com or something. And they literally are on every continent all over the world, which it really makes you wonder. Because if this was something that our government was creating or whatever, why would they be all over the world unless we put them there, or there are other governments working on this as well? And well, I guess we can kind of cover that first, because I've got a ton of questions right now. But yeah, what is the phenomenon here? You know, I wish I had remote viewed this. Okay, I would love to get a target that involves a pell crawler. But what do y'all think?
Well, you know, we realize that the government has a big hand in cryptid stuff. We know that they're very interested in that. And if these were some kind of underground civilization or whatever, They may have already contacted them or may have captured some of them for experimental purposes. But if you see something worldwide like that, Jessica Barry, that tells me that this is not just a government thing. This is something that has to do, I think, with the subterranean world that we know very little of.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely. And when it comes to that, these quote unquote labs and underground facilities, we've kind of established through the other targets that you've done, the blind ones, Jessica, that these things go back to past biblical times. Wherever these factory, these installations, they're demonic and they go way, way back. It's
Right.
so that's so when dealing with that, it doesn't take much for them to do a dispersal almost worldwide,
Mm-hmm.
and but what's interesting is this another one, did this kind of come in a wave too? Is it a wave, or has this been around for how far back do these pale crawlers go as far as historically? Do either you know?
Right.
I don't know. I've only heard of them recently. So I'm not super familiar with them, but I'm sure that they probably have been around for a while. But we're just now seeing a whole lot of videos of them coming up on like social media sites. There's one in particular that really caught my attention, and this is one out of Kentucky. Oops, let me pull this back up. Now, this is just a still shot from this. And this is a video. I actually put a link to it. I don't know if the link is working, but it's up in the top of the chat today, of the live chat. And this is a 33-second, this is a clip from a 33-second video of a pale human-like figure caught on security cameras in Moorhead, Kentucky. Now, people are trying to decide, like, is this a person dressed in an outfit, but like the legs and the arms are just way, way longer than normal and really skinny. And it looks like it's kind of squatting. Okay, it's squatting down as it walks. It's doing like a squat walk, I guess you could call it, or a duck walk. And it's looking around and it's checking out this car. Some people are saying that it has a face on it. And
if I spent a lot of time on the ground, if I spent a lot of time on the ground, I'd probably walk like that too. Definitely. To me, that's the interesting part of it, is you don't hear that much of them being on two legs, more of a crawling thing. And that's what struck me as strange when I first heard about the pale crawlers. Why the heck are they crawling? And that's the only explanation I can come up with, is the fact that they're from some kind of subterranean type environment that caused them to do that,
And and the rake's the same thing. The rakes, that's why they must be the same thing. The rakes are always described just like them, but also crawling. They're always crawling. In that picture you just showed, the phallus type head with the really long neck is what stuck out to me. That didn't look human to me. Not the head and the it's almost phallic structure there.
Yeah,
but that's a very, very long neck with an extremely small head that almost looks reptilian-like to me, to be honest, or snake-like.
It did.
Or
Well,
that's a perfect. If you look at that's a perfect adaptation for crawling or going underground. I mean, if you're going through cave systems, that would be the perfect shape to have, really, when you think about it.
It certainly looks very stick figure-ish, right? Like a stick. Barry, I was going to ask you, do you think that there could be a connection between it could be like an extraterrestrial? I guess it's an ultra-terrestrial, but it seems like it could have some extraterrestrial origins potentially too. What do you think?
It could be now, especially, but it seems more like, I tend to agree with Dennis, more subterranean, I think, is what it seems to me. But as far as the question, there been any reports of these things being cannibals or hostility associated with them? Or
Well, yeah. Well, Long Island Bigfoot, who's in the chat, who came on my show at Spaced Out Radio Sunday night, said that he had been kind of chased down in the woods by one. He was confronted by one, and he said that it was jumping all over the place, like running at him, and it charged at him, and it was kind of doing a jumping motion, and it was very. He said that his life flashed before his eyes, and I'm sure he'll comment.
I'm gonna share with both of you a very interesting sighting that I had given to me by an eyewitness, and this happened, I think, right outside of Hell, Michigan, and this was very strange. He said that he and his friend were out riding around in their Jeep, and they were out in the countryside, and they came upon a car sitting in the road. and the doors were open on it. It looked like, it was either an accident or something going on, and the car was right in the middle of the road. So he got out. I think he was like an ex-police officer or something, and so immediately he got out. He happened to be wearing a sidearm, and he had a flashlight with him. And they got out to look around the car and see what was going on. They couldn't find anybody. There's nobody around or anything. There wasn't any. He said he didn't see any blood or anything. And what it was sort of an ambush, because all of a sudden, he said, in the trees off on the side of the road around him, they began to see these figures. And they said that maybe there were more than half a dozen of them. And they were all out there behind the trees watching him. And he said, and here's the weird thing, he said they moved in a static kind of way. In other words, if you looked at them for another moment, they'd be a little bit closer, and you wouldn't see them actually move. They'd be a little bit, they call that a sort of a static kind of movement. And he said he was watching, and they were surrounded by these things. This was a trap set for them by these things, supposedly. And said that they backed up slowly and got back in the Jeep and took off. That was the way they got away from it. But he said it was a very bizarre incident. And what struck me as strange, they were pale. He described as pale crawlers. What he was describing, they looked like. But they were all standing up. I asked him, I said, were any of them actually crawling? He said, no, they were standing up like people, behind the trees watching us and moving closer to us. And that's why they took off. You have some weird reports of these things being seen, not just crawling around in people's yards, but actually trying to ambush people, or actually watching people from the woods and places like that. It's almost as they have a weird curiosity about us, or are they up to something really no good in that respect? The thing about the traditional ghoul, Barry and Jessica, they were once human beings. The traditional ghouls were. And you have to wonder if maybe that's something going on with that too. That why they're so interested in this and why they seem to be, and they're displaying intelligence. I mean, they're not just wandering around aimlessly.
Yeah.
I always get images a lot, and as you described that, what I kept seeing, what movie I kept seeing. I believe it's called I Am Legend with Will Smith. And, when he goes into the city, they've got the humans that have been mutated by whatever that is. And how they set that trap for him and they strung him up, remember?
Mm-hmm.
It's just very interesting, and dealing with it. Somebody just asked if they were once human. That's what I've heard too. Ghouls are always human, and some way they've been either infected with some type of a virus or a fungus that has changed them into that, or even the process of satanic doing, and blood sacrificing and such. I've heard that too. So
they can bring those kind of things up, especially when you open spiritual portals, Barry. Definitely, without a doubt. No telling what's going to come through it. And, there's even reports of Mothman. I'm not going to get into that today, but there's reports of Mothman actually being seen, supposedly coming through portals. Whenever you open a doorway, it's just like a door to your house. Anything can come in,
Dennis, do you believe also when they detonated, the atomic bombs and the things based on the hydrogen molecule, that they actually ripped into dimensions and things came through then? I kind of believe that.
Yeah. And here's another thing, a spin on that, since we were talking about like they're like made for caves or to subterranean, that could be the kind of dimension they come out of. We don't know what other dimensions what kind of environments may be and how they are situated. We've never been there to come back and tell anybody about it in that respect. Mm-hmm. So, hey, that could be that too. They could be coming out of some kind of weird other dimension. Well, that's normal for them, to look that way and act that way,
Well, that's something that I always mention when I talk about that cave that I went in. As soon as you walk down into the mouth of that cave, to the opening, it felt like walking into a whole other dimension, a whole other world. And the things that we were picking up on our SLS cameras, they would not come outside of the cave. They were staying inside the cave. They wouldn't go past that line right there. There were, the kinetic cameras that we had. They looked like stick figures, and there was like a giant one, and there's two little people and one giant person, or whatever it was. that was crawling around the cave and stuff. And I have video of this on my Instagram if you guys want to go, and probably on my YouTube too. But you guys can go watch these videos. Literally as though there was a portal right there. And so that was another, I guess, hypothesis. You know, it was like another thing of like, well, it could have been going through a portal. That cave was a portal right there. So that's something I experienced firsthand. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, I've mentioned before in one of the regressions I had done, and this was something completely different. In my native state, somebody is having the Sasquatch activity, and they stay as remote in the state, but they have all these caves out there. And it's weird because I had done a reading for them the day before we did the hypnosis, and I kept picking up for the reading the Sasquatch thing. They'd seen one, and it's like near their property, but that didn't hardly make sense due to the state we live in. But then, so I never mentioned it. But then during the regression, this just comes up, and they start talking about seeing a Sasquatch and about them using these caves that are in that area to train the juveniles to manifest and use their invisibility techniques to learn all that. And that the caves.
I've said that for many years. That there's that cave connection, absolutely, with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and they were stating how they don't live in the caves, but they use them for transport and for training grounds. And that, to me, that definitely, rang true. And some things like that come up when people are in heightened awareness that aren't even into this stuff. And that's a yoga person. They're not into to Sasquatch. So, it's just interesting when these things come up, I think. So it gives a little bit of validation,
Yeah, it does.
And looking back at folklore, that so much is connected to the underground. That's where the fairy kingdom was. That's where a lot of these subterranean cities and supposedly that are lost are situated. That's a perfect place to hide when you think about it, underground.
Oh yeah, and Urso had an interesting comment too. And yes, there are deep underground military bases, absolutely. But says energy plus crystals and magnetic minerals can act if arranged right at like a field generator, and that's true. There's a lot of crystals and stuff, and well, there's just a whole lot of quartz anywhere that we have cryptid activity too. Out in the field, we're seeing veins of quartz wherever we have portals opening, and we have Bigfoot activity. Lots of minerals, lots of quartz, lots of crystals out there, which are conductors. I think they're conductors to open up portals. Personally, that's what I'm thinking.
Back in ancient alchemy, there was a lot of experimentation that went on with crystals because they thought supposedly you could see other worlds through the crystals and stuff. That's an interesting facet too.
Oh yeah, Robin's wondering, could they be controlled by AI? These pill crawlers. What do y'all think?
That's a possibility. I mean, it's a possibility that would be part of maybe the government experiment. If we think like we've supposed for many years that the government has a big hand in cryptids, that includes Sasquatch, Dogman, the rest of them, they would definitely probably institute some type. I'm going to tell you this, and we got to remember this when we talk about government involvement. The government is 30 to 40 years ahead of us technological wise because they only give us what we have. They keep the best stuff for themselves. So this and I'll illustrate a point right quick. 50 years ago, they had cameras in space that could read a headline of a newspaper in Moscow. 50 years ago, what good God knows what they have now. You know what I'm saying? And that would not be that surprising that if they've got AI, and I believe without doubt they are working with AI, it's probably more advanced than anything we've got in the public sector.
Oh yeah. Well,
in that respect.
I did have a friend come on the show a while back. Nick Sylvester came on, and we were talking about government assets, like cryptids being used as government assets for nefarious purposes or for use in our military. And he said that from some insider information he had, and he is a big advocate in the truther community. He was saying that it was known, or he had been told, that the government actually utilizes, I think it's like 12 to 13 different types of cryptids for some nefarious work. And the rakes or the pill crawlers were on that list. And when we were kind of talking about like what could they be used for, it was like, well, they could be used for kidnapping. Okay. For surveillance. I think Robin or somebody in the chat said about surveillance potentially. They're different aspects where these things can be very stealthy, you know, when they can get stuff done, I guess. However, they're controlled. So that might be connected to the AI connection where they're being controlled.
We all know the government, Jessica, we all know the government is very good at weaponizing everything. That's their main focus. Take something and weaponize. Look what they do with dolphins and etc. That would be my first definitely choice for that. It's a weapon that they would want to utilize without doubt. What do you think, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything now, and I think in some ways what we're using the word government is just the same thing to say satanic, this faction of it. So I mean, anything they're doing is it's definitely cryptid related. You know, I keep kind of stuck back on the question, a statement that come up a little bit ago about the crystals and stuff being generators. I think that's much more accurate and massive than we think. For example, I remember what's her name? The lady that was the dancer. Oh gosh. She's got a medicine wheel, and she stays at the place. Shirley MacLaine. I'm sorry, Shirley MacLaine. She's got that ranch out in what is it in New Mexico somewhere near the Caldera mine, where all those crystals have blown out. And she talks about all the UFOs that have come over her house and over her hot tub, and all the stars that have seen it, and they go into the mountain. And she said she starts saying on Oprah. Well, poor Oprah went out to her own thing, and people started laughing at her. She said, "I think that they use those crystals and focus them somehow. They're either using them or harnessing them or protecting them." And I'll take that a step over to somebody I know that was a mineral and gem collector all their life, from the family of that. And they described being at a mine, and I want to say it was in North Carolina. They said South Carolina, but it was a mine that specialized in green tourmaline and black beryl. And when you start looking at that compound, it starts making almost what's one of the few natural quasi-crystals on this planet. And this individual described to me being younger and about to pick up a snake on accident. They thought it was a tire. And the man that was watching the mine that worked there or something got in their mind and said, "Hey, don't grab that." And they were way down the hill. And that's when they realized that as they got older, they said, "I don't think he was exactly human. He just seemed to be this old man that worked there." But, that shows that I think that they were actually involved, extraterrestrial wise, that look humanoid, involved or watching that natural quasi-crystal in that mine because of that. These things go back ancient. And I think we can take that as far too to why are some cryptids like Sasquatch obsessed with mines and caves, and there's an inner earth access there too. I think that's much more valid than people want to admit. Where do Sasquatch go when they leave, when they disappear? Where do they go?
That's where I would go. I would go underground, definitely. That's the perfect hiding place. And you're safer and more secure there as well. That's the perfect place to go. And it makes perfect sense to me. That's what they would do.
Yeah.
And if you look at like Randall Carlson, what he calls about the catastrophes that happened, especially at the end of the Ice Age and how it ended with those impacts, anything on the top of the surface got pummeled. So you're going to have anything that could go subterranean was definitely doing it at that point. And how many of these things, like what the Hopis say about the bee people and these things keep going forward, how much of that is all tied together. And so it's still going to be active down there. Whether or not the Admiral Byrd story is exactly accurate or not, you've got something going on as far as the inner earth and as far as the catacombs that exist within also. There's a lot to be said there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really like this comment right here from Lady J. Homestead. Says, "I noticed they're blocking up caves in government-owned forests in Pennsylvania and Ohio." Now, I have seen plenty of pictures. I've heard this too, and I've seen a lot of pictures of, it looks like rebar, okay, like gates that are put into the openings of caves and stuff, and they say it's for the bats. Okay, it's like to keep people out of these things. What if it's to keep something inside these caves? Okay, but they're blocking up these caves. Maybe it's not to let people get in, but to keep things from coming out. Maybe like the pill crawlers and stuff. That's interesting.
I've seen pictures of that. Definitely, they actually build gates and doors over these caves. And why are they doing that? That's an interesting question. Is it to keep something in or to keep something out?
I don't know. Caves are not my favorite. I'm not a fan of caves. I'm really not.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm not, because you just don't know what's going to come out.
Yeah.
No spelunking for you. Huh?
I have done a little spelunking. I'm gonna tell you something. I've done a little spelunking. Okay, I've been in some tunnels, and you talking about free. You're in a completely different environment. It's like going undersea or something. You know, you're in a completely different environment. It's really freaky. And the fact is, it's dark. You can't see where you're at. You're just completely out of your environment when you in that. You know.
Yeah. I used to kind of try to listen, just try to read some of the journals, but they're kind of difficult, from the speleologists. And, they're a little different than the spelunkers. Mm-hmm. And, I was interested in it because there were some of them talking about how they went all underneath Mount Shasta, praying they would find a city under there. There was no such thing. It's stuff like that. When I ask people why, they say, "You understand, Barry? It's multidimensional." That works, but I'm just saying, you do have people down there crawling around, and a thing I would never do. They're talking. I mean, some of the stories they have is just unreal, and some of the stuff they discovered down there. I think speleologists should be looked at a little more intensely than they are, because it's not the glory work. You know what I mean? But they're the ones that see a lot down there.
Yeah, one of my teammates, Craig Action Jackson. Okay, Craig has been on the show before, and I brought him on to talk about caves. And he is my resident cave expert. He's a speleologist.
He's a speleologist.
Speleologist, yes, he is. And he always made that distinction between the speleologists and the spelunkers, because he said that what he does, he has to go in and rescue the spelunkers. Okay, because they get stuck and stuff. So he's the one that goes in to like do some rescue with them, or for them. But yeah, he's my resident cave expert, even though he says he's not an expert, of course, but he knows more than I do. And he's got you got to have some nerves of steel to be able to do that. I don't know. I get claustrophobic, and as you're walking through caves, a lot of the times when there's mud on the ground, this is from my personal experience. When there's mud on that ground, you can't really lift your feet up. It gets really thick. And so if something charges at you from one end of the cave, from, coming towards you, good luck getting out of there. Okay. Even if you take your shoes off, you're going to have to run. I mean, you might climb on the side of the wall to get out of there. I don't know. Cause it could be really scary, and it can also be, dangerous, very dangerous. Very dangerous. Somebody had mentioned ant people earlier. I think that was Brian from Montauk is Strange. Hey, Brian. And might have been him. But yeah, I don't know.
The ant people, I've heard the Hopi call them the ant people and the bee people. But the same thing, when you had a part where humanity had a great portion had to seek refuge in caves. And after a couple of generations, they started developing insectoid features. And that's what's said. And that even goes to what they say. I've heard that story is real and fake. The J-Rod story. J-Rod had said he was from the future, and that there was a cataclysm that happened, and they had to go underground. And he was a result of that, generations of that. And he was actually human. So again, these are things just food for thought. But I think that might actually be the past.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of reports of people seeing things like that down in cave systems. I mean, that would have to be very freaky, looking way down a dark tunnel and have some eyes looking back at you, kind of a thing going on. That would have to be definitely a very bad situation to be in. But there's a lot of reports of that. I've actually seen film of people filming these eyes that they see looking back at them from down in these.
Oh yeah.
I've seen a couple of those.
Caves. Well, it's not just caves too. It's like sewer systems.
Sewers.
Yeah, that too. So, yeah,
I'm still back in the 80s. I'm worried about alligators in the sewer. You remember that terrible
yes,
movie?
that
About a
movie.
20-foot croc
I
in there.
always, when I think about it, I always think about that movie, The Mole People. Remember that? The old movie, The
Yeah.
Mole People? Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it makes you kind of really curious though when dealing with when you start going underground like that, the potential for portals to happen due to the dimensional stress and things. You know, it's really interesting. And I don't know, a little bit creepy. I gotta agree with you. I wouldn't care to be in there too much, you know. But
Yeah.
trying to think. Go ahead. I was thinking something about the humanoids I had heard about in caves, but I got lost on it. So go ahead. I lost a thought.
No, well, Cryptidville has an interesting point. It says, I think there could be a connection between caves, portals, and practitioners of magic. Could explain the affinity for caves. It could. Now, here's an idea, because Dennis, you and I have talked a lot about demonology and the potential of, demons inhabiting bodies of basically empty vessels and stuff too. So could this be something that is demonic? Could these pale crawlers potentially be demonic, and they're just some sort of empty shell of a human body, okay, that has been worn out and a demon has inhabited it? I mean, is that a potential route that we could be going with these things?
Yeah, that's something I considered in the past. Are these lost souls, or they've been changed that way? They been doomed by some type of dark witchcraft or the dark arts. It's got some kind of connection with that. There are in demonology what are called lurker demons. These demons are called up supposedly from the underworld. There you go. That's where they suppose they come from, and they guard areas. They're supposed to guard or watch over areas. They're sort of like your demon servant, kind of thing. And they work for you and do these things. And a lot of times they are sometimes described as looking very much like these pale crawlers that we're talking about. So there is another connection there. Is this something brought up from the abyss to do things, or have people release these things into our world for a reason? That's not good.
Dennis,
Well,
would
Dennis,
you put the hellhounds in that same category as them? The hellhounds with that as the guardians of some of these places.
Well, they set these things as guardians, like over, if they're watchers over their covens, or stuff like that, or they guard the areas where they meet, supposedly, or they're used for that. The reason they call them lurker demons is because they stay in the shadows. They watch, but when they move, they exert a force upon you that will very badly affect you. In other words, they can claw you up or whatever it is they do to you. But when they're activated against you, you really don't see them until it's too late, kind of a thing. That's why they call them lurkers. They sound very much like internet trolls. There's that out there waiting for you. We've all run into them, but that's sort of a good way to describe a lurker demon. That's what they do.
Wow,
But they are definitely guardians and enforcers in that respect. Yeah.
wow, that's cool. See, I just learned something there because only cryptids or creatures I heard doing that was the hellhounds. I not heard about these workers like that. So thank you. That's very informative.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Wow.
this is an interesting comment too. Oh, go ahead, Dennis. We'll get to the comment. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say that if you run into the lurker demons, you will usually run into them around wherever they have their ceremonies and stuff like that, whatever it is they're doing. And I've actually I've been in places like that. I've actually went to places where they've had these ceremonies. I felt something watching me there, definitely, without a doubt, And over all the many years I've been involved in this, I've sort of developed a sixth sense. I could kind of feel it, the hairs on the back of the neck, kind of a feel, something is watching you. And I think that's what that basically was, and then kind of a thing. But whether they're connected with pale crawlers, if they really look like that when you see them, maybe, I don't know. That's a strange connection. But you gotta remember something about all this stuff. When you're dealing with this dark witchcraft and all that, you're dealing with portals. You're dealing with doorways that you open to these things. You know,
Hmm. There's a place that we go and
CERN would
uh,
would be concerned definitely with that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, there's a place that my team we've researched a couple of different times. It's called Corpsewood Manor here in Northwest Georgia, where there was a lot of satanic rituals going on there, and they still have rituals going on there to this day. It's right there where Old Green Eyes has been spotted. Barry, your favorite. I'm
Oh,
just
not
kidding.
that one again.
but but we have reports of like werewolves and dogmen and Sasquatch and all that up there. And Dennis, like you were saying, when I was up there at night, it was a horrible feeling. You just know you're being watched. There's stuff lurking in the shadows, and the only evidence that I actually got were like orbs, like faces and orbs that when I was taking pictures out there. But there was a omnipresence, I guess you could call it. I mean, you just felt like it was almost suffocating, because there's
It's
so much
very
just energy there.
you can feel it definitely when you go into
Mhm.
these areas. You feel that, and I've often said it's sort of like a spiritual compass going off in you. You know, that's warning you in that respect. And definitely, if you ever get that feeling, you need to pay attention to it, folks. Don't brush it aside. Pay attention to it because I think it's a built-in natural thing that if something comes against your spirit like that, that's not good, a sort of a darker entity or whatever name you want to give it, you better pay attention because it's definitely not out to do you any good. And that's the thing about the pale crawlers. There are, being in demonology, I know that there are different levels of demonic possession. There are some so very subtle you don't even know you're possessed. I was seeing this on my show the other night that there's a lot of people out there walking around possessed and they don't even know it, that they're possessed. That's a freaky thing to think about. That's scary, you know.
Okay. Look, this won't even take us on topic. You just laid right into this. I've been wanting to ask this for a minute, okay, but I don't want to do a Barry and take us off topic. I'm famous for that. But look, this ties right in what you're saying. I was super interested and impressed with something you had said. I was watching one of the shows, and you had mentioned when I asked you a question, Dennis, that you had actually met Malachi Martin, and I'm just going to ask you. You said you met him a few times. Did you do an exorcism with him?
Okay, well, to me, uh, I've never met him. I've studied this case for a long time. Okay, and to me, it definitely began with the Ouija board activity. Okay, but this guy doesn't even remember being possessed. Really, he has very very sketchy memories of this. Okay, and that's really probably a good thing in that respect. But you gotta remember something with demonology. A lot of this is psychological, and that's the way they work upon you psychologically. You know, that's another factor you got to look at. And I was listening to an exorcist the other day, and he said something very interesting. I completely agree with him that some of the worst cases and places he's been in are mental institutions because the demonic takes this mental illness and uses it like a tool. It hides behind it. So you can't only just be an exorcist anymore. You got to be a psychologist. You got to be a medical doctor. You got to be all these different things to figure out exactly what's going on. And to me, that makes perfect sense because that's how very insidious these forces are. They use this stuff and hide behind it. It's sort of like the Hamas over in the Middle East. They use hospitals to hide behind. That's not good, but that's the way they work, and that's the way these guys do. They will take any kind of a human weakness and use it as a weapon.
Wow.
That's it's interesting, and I really like that you took an interest in that link I had put up with about the deadly haunting, which was this lady named Debbie Moffat, and that for me, I mean, I can only get so deep into the negative and evil stuff, but that was one of the most serious cases I'd heard of, as far as their demonic presence and that was ability to break things just routinely like that. And also the communication they were doing with it and how it was fixated on her mother-in-law from another lifetime. It was supposed to be a sacrifice. And it's the people that were supposed to sacrifice her, but this is the demonic force they were sacrificing her to. It's followed her for lifetimes. I mean, that was, and she described the amount of shamans and practitioners she had come in there that could not get rid of that thing. And what'd you think about that overall? And again, this case I'm talking about, so everybody knows, it's called The Deadly Haunting by Debbie Moffat, Moffiat, I believe.
Well, there's a lot of bloodletting. The letting of blood in the ceremonies and all that is a very important factor. The blood is the life. And when you talk about that and these dark rituals they perform, you talk about murder that they commit, the terrible things that they do. And I talked about this on my show the other night. There's cannibalism involved in this too. Okay. You're talking about, here's what it is. When they do these things, everything that is taboo is on the table for them, whatever it may be, whether it's sex with your brother or sister or whatever or murder of your siblings or cannibalism or whatever it is. That's what they go for, because it is a basic dark destruction of innocence against the human spirit. That's basically what it is. But I talked to William Blatty one time about the Malachi thing, the Malachi Martin thing, and I didn't get to talk to him very long, but and it was over the internet. It wasn't face to face. But I asked him. I said, "What about The Exorcist when you started writing it and all that?" He said, "Let me tell you this. This is the one thing he told me. He said, when I began to write it, I didn't believe. When I got through with the book, I was a believer." And that's what this subject will do to you. It opens up different avenues for you in your mind. The deeper you go into it, the more freaky it gets. But that's just the way this subject is, definitely.
When we're talking about, can I just let me kind of make a connection here, because we're talking about the satanic kind of aspect of this, or the demonic aspect of this. A lot of these pale crawlers are seen in sewer systems where it's really nasty and dirty, and there's excrement down there, and it's like the grossest of the gross down there, and that's where they're seen. So wouldn't that give that, it would kind of be logical to think that these might be demonic in a way if they're hanging out in the sewer down there. Well, of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles hung out in sewers. They live down there too. Okay, but we're not talking about the TMNT. Okay, we're talking about the pale crawlers today. Okay, but I would think that would give them more of a demonic kind of connotation for being down there in those sewers.
Well, that's the thing about the pale crawlers, Jessica. They look human. They look like this sort of very human, but yet they're not, kind of a thing. And that would be a definite sort of demonic type tie to that. But even that, when you think about those places like that, where is hell supposed to be? Underground. I think you're basically talking about some kind of portal stuff going on, and I think there's a connection with these pale crawlers to some type of portal activity, whatever it may be. I'd like to know if anybody has ever sighted anything like these around Skinwalker Ranch. It would be interesting to know.
That's a good question.
That is a good question. I don't know. I have to ask. I've never come across a pale crawler, not yet. But I have seen ETs, and the way that these things move. I've seen the videos of them. They move. It doesn't look really natural, like in human terms. And this is something I talk about a lot. Is like the movement of cryptids, and this is no different. Okay, it moves weird. It's got a weird little bounce, like Long Island Bigfoot Mike had said on my show Saturday or Sunday night. It bounced. He said it bounced around and it had this weird movement to it.
I'd like to have a count. like that account I mentioned earlier, that static movement, like to it's almost as if they're transcending realities or something. They're moving through time and space in a different way. And and I've said this many times, Barry, Jessica, when you deal with the paranormal, you got to remember something. It may not be in your time and space. It may not be moving in your time and space in that respect.
Hmm. And sometimes there's that time lag too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, it's because we're trying to figure out why do they move the way they move and they do the things they do. Oh, they're not human. Okay, they're not human and they're not animals as we know them. So, I mean, I'm a little worried about them being used as government assets and stuff, and wondering if they have a connection to some of the missing people that we talk about often. I don't know. I don't know. What do y'all think?
To me, they would definitely, I believe without a doubt, knowing the government the way they do it is, they definitely have a hand in a lot of this that's going on with it. We know how Operation Paperclip went and a lot of other things, and that was many years ago. And like I say, they're so far advanced from what they let the public know. I definitely believe without a doubt they have a hand in some of this stuff. What do you think, Barry?
I agree. I mean, like I said, I think that, for the portion of what we're talking about, government is satanic. There's no way around it. Like everything we're seeing right now, from SSP to these cryptids to Dogman being used as weaponized. I mean, it's all so demonic, and that's the
Uh-huh.
basis of what we're dealing with here. And it's a shame that that's the vibration that really is, prevalent on this planet. And it's
Uh-huh.
starting with the people that incarnate like you and I, and they're nothing but demon. But they come in here just like you and I, and they seem to be even devoid of the ability to love. I know you both. I mean, we've all met people like that. Like they can't love. There's something wrong, and it kind of makes you wonder. But like, you know, what experiences did your soul have before you got here? You know.
Well, things like that, and we tend to describe it as spiritual. Whatever energy this is we're talking about, we give it different tags. But like it said, this if it's moving through realities and changing from molecular moment to moment in the way it moves and all, it would definitely look static. I would think, it would definitely move in a different kind of way. And that's what when you think about pale crawlers, I'm thinking about their very unusual and strange way of existence for them. It's just very bizarre. And to me, when I think about pale crawlers, I think about something from some other timeline or dimension or something crossing
Mhm.
over into ours. That's what I think about when I think about it.
Wow. Well, nonetheless, they're being seen a lot right now, and there's no shortage of videos of them on dun 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 TikTok. Okay,
Oh no.
TikTok. Well, I mean, it's a place to see things. People are posting there, so
You
check it
know what
out.
burns me out? I got so sick of hearing about the TikTok UFO, about regurgitated.
Oh, Tic Tac, the Tic Tac
Oh, the
Uh,
UFO.
Tic Tac UFO. I'm sorry. Yeah, Tic Tac, like the candy. That's even
yeah.
better. Yeah.
Um,
my mistake.
yeah. Well, the
Well,
majority of these pale crawlers that I've been seeing have the videos are mostly in the Appalachian Mountains too. So I don't know what's going on. I do know what's going on in the Appalachian Mountains because I researched
well,
that
here's
area
what
down here in the
What's
here's
South.
going
what
on?
somebody said the other day. If there are aliens in the Tic Tacs or whatever kind of craft we're talking about, if they're moving at these tremendous speeds, going past the laws of physics, you're talking about spiritual beings. They're not physical beings. They couldn't take that. You know what I'm saying? That kind of movement, that kind of physical exertion. Uh, to me, you're talking about some other type of an existence beyond what we know.
I've been aboard craft where some of the beings were about as corporeal as me, but others were not. They were partial see-through, transparent, and I've seen people on craft that are transparent because they're in dream body, and that shows that they can actually meet us to a certain point. But those people that were in dream body weren't about to throw up like I was during that experience. So seeing how they can actually come from being whatever it is, quasi-material or wherever it is, to meeting us halfway. But then a lot of them won't go. I've described these eggs on these craft and these lights that came out and helped me that I realized were actually probably what we would call non-corporeal command officers. But they're putting in my mind, they're like fish out of water in our density. But I think just in that part of the ship where I'm capable of existing and these even other beings are half phased out, I think for them, it's really deadly and they get trapped there, the ones that are inside these tubes. So you're seeing actually a path of coherency to their universe, to ours. Very interesting stuff. I didn't realize I was dealing with it first. It took me a long time to accept it and figure it out, but it is what it is. When we're dealing with beings, some that come from not just a different planet or different universe, they're coming from consciousness and from also, from beyond. But the materialists don't want to deal with that.
Well, it's kind of like, what Einstein said about energy. It always exists in one form or another, but it's going to always exist. You either have a physical existence or you may have a what we call spiritual existence. There may be different existences of this. And that's the thing about like I said about earlier about the pale crawlers, the weird movements they make, the way they move. It seems to me like they're moving in some other kind of dimension, or that's where they come from, and that's the way they move. That makes perfect sense to me too.
Wow.
It almost does seem like somewhere with heavy gravity, maybe heavier gravity.
Well, fellas, we're going to have to do this again one day soon, because this has been a really interesting conversation today. And we've come to the end of the hour. So I want to ask both of you individually your final thoughts on the pale crawlers today. Dennis, you go first. What is your final thought?
Well, I think they're interdimensional type beings of some sort, wherever they come from. I think they're subterranean in that respect. And whether the government has a hand in it would not surprise me a bit with that factor too. But I believe they're subterranean, but they may come through portals underground or whatever the situation is. I just don't think they belong here, but they're here nevertheless. What do you say, Barry?
I agree with that, and I think maybe throwing on top of that too is what they're experimenting, they're doing, maybe they're trying to reproduce these beings, these creatures, and are they experimenting on people doing that too? And that's why we're picking up both. I think you need to remote view it, Jones. Maybe it's a blind target. I think it'd be pretty interesting. Yeah. If nothing else, the origin of them,
Yeah. Well, maybe you should give me that as a target one day, Barry. Hint, hint. Wink, wink. That would be a great. I mean, this would be a great target. I mean, it'd be great to really get to the bottom of these cave dwelling cryptids. Okay, and man, well, I hope. I mean, I've learned a whole lot today, actually, by listening to you guys and having y'all here. So, man, thank you so much. And and I want to thank everybody that's here in the chat today. You guys are the best. We had a great chat going on. Wonderful people in here. And Dennis, you have a show tonight, right? Would you like to tell the audience about your show and where people can find you?
Okay, you can reach me at denniswcarroll.com. That's my website. And my show will be on tonight, as a matter of fact, at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Hunting the Shadows. I'm going to be doing Creatures of the Night, a little series I'm beginning. And we'll be talking about trolls tonight, definitely. Going to get into that. That's freaky stuff, too. And then Friday night, I'll be doing Paranormal Point of View at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to get into some interesting stuff on that. I do movie reviews on that and some other things too. So I stay busy.
Oh, that's awesome. I love you. Have the best shows, Dennis. So thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your knowledge with us today. And Barry, you and I are going to both be speaking at a brand new conference on my calendar, the Appalachian Starseed reunion coming up. So I'm excited I get to see you again in person. But Barry, tell the audience about your YouTube channel too, and where they can find you.
Mosquitoes out there, Jones. Mosquitoes out there.
Oh,
Mosquitoes.
mosquito. I think you said speedos.
Anyway, all right. Everybody can find me. I'm on YouTube.
I tell you, I'm just sitting here thinking. I think we transcended time today. This was a fast hour. I don't know where it went.
It was.
Yeah, it was
It
fast.
was.
It was fast. I agree.
Yeah, mosquitoes. Yes, we're gonna have mosquitoes probably.
Sorry, I'm giggling and stuff. You can find me on YouTube and also on Patreon and on Facebook. I do a little stuff on there. And if you go to YouTube, please check out the playlist, subscribe, help me beat the shadow ban.
Yes, everybody, please go subscribe to Barry Littleton on YouTube and Patreon, and Hunting the Shadows over on YouTube as well. Oh my gosh, we're gonna do this again, okay? And I think we really did hit this from a lot of different angles today with these pale crawlers. So hopefully this helps. Okay, hopefully this helps the collective where we can try to start figuring this out. And hopefully I'll get this as a remote viewing target in the future, and we'll come back and revisit it when I do. Okay. All right. Well, everybody, please come back and hang out with me tomorrow night. I will have a remote viewing show at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And then I'll be back this weekend on my channel on Saturday night and on Spaced Out Radio on Sunday. All right. Well, Barry and Dennis, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. Or for today. I guess it's today. Over here.
Nice
awesome.
To meet you, Dennis. Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for my 8,000 subscribers, everybody. That is such a huge milestone. I want to thank everybody so much for all of your support. Y'all rock, and I couldn't do it without y'all. And you too, Barry and Dennis. Couldn't do it without you guys. So you guys have a great day, and I will see y'all tomorrow night. And I'll see you tonight over on Dennis's channel. All right. Bye, y'all.